Ranking new movies released in November from worst to best. Now for this month, I somehow PR'd again, going from watching 8 new releases in October to officially hitting 10 new releases in November. So I'm gonna have to self-plug myself again and ask y'all to go follow me on Letterboxd because I'm a certified professional movie watcher now and write passionate reviews for every single one that I know you'll enjoy. Up first, we got Playdate, and from this movie's trailer, I was expecting another Ice Cube's 2025 War of the Worlds level experience. But I was genuinely surprised with how entertaining this was, and it actually felt like there was a tad bit of heart deep at this movie's core. Because the movie knows its brain rot and doesn't hold back on making itself over the top like. There are a ridiculous amount of lazy movie references in this. The edits were insane, like slow motion out of nowhere, random needle drops, 20 cuts in 5 seconds, and a lot of the same tropes I would see in a Mr. Beast video. And finally, yes, this entire movie is kind of a long Honda Odyssey ad, but if your movie's on this level of YouTube Shorts brain rot, the multiple blatant Honda Odyssey ads weirdly worked for the vibe, especially when they made jokes about it. So overall, the movie kind of drags at the end and took itself a little too seriously, but the goofiness in the first half and a few jokes that I found clever almost evens it out. So I think if you can turn your brain off for a magical quick hour and 30 minutes, this movie is calling your name, so high 2.5 out of 5. Next, we got Wicked for Good, or most people would just say this is Wicked for Mid, because the biggest standout for this movie is easily its pacing. You'll notice how it moves at 1 billion miles per hour, almost like they're trying to speed run the entire storyline. But then again, I enjoyed how desperately this movie wanted to set everything up for the original Wizard of Oz as quickly as possible. It felt like piecing together a massive puzzle, even though a lot of those puzzle pieces felt like they were just thrown all together because they needed to be. Next, obviously this is a musical, but the songs were definitely not as memorable as the first. And other than the song Wonderful, not many other songs stuck with me enough for me to even identify their names. Next, obviously one of the biggest complaints from the first movie for most people was that the lighting was terrible or wasn't colorful enough. And while this one still dips into that problem a few times, it actually felt more like a real movie. And I think that's because everything stays permanently evening, which honestly adds more to the mature tone the sequel is going for. So overall, I think most people online are over hating this movie, and I personally put it over the first by a hair, because I'd way rather have a movie with fast, slightly messy pacing than sit through 2 hours of slow filler plus an extra 45 minutes of sequel setup. For me, Wicked for Pretty Good is a 3 out of 5. Next, we got Predator Badlands, and from what I was hearing online, I'm literally the only person who thought this was just alright, so here are the positives. Elle Fanning kinda hard carried, especially with her playing both the good and the bad guy, and I thought this was gonna look like a bland streaming movie, but it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. I also respect the concept for being something new, but my biggest complaint is just Deck the Predator. At the beginning, he's shown to be kind of a runt and a loser compared to the other Yauchi, forcing him to need some next level character development for me to like him, but instead he's just constantly saved by other people. And when he finally does do Predator shit, I can't really take him too seriously because it really just feels like a 5'10" guy in a suit beating up everyone, not a brute force predator like I want to see. And after all that, I don't really know if he gained enough character development to solo his father in the climax compared to Naru and Prey, or the 3 other stories in Killer of Killers who actually did gain that development. So overall, I do admit I was in a pissy mood when I watched this, but the biggest thing I need from a Predator movie is to feel the brute force and aura of the Predator. And on top of that, it's a PG-13 movie and I could really feel it. So Predator Badlands is just a high 3 out of 5 for me. Up next, we got Frankenstein, and I know it's Guillermo del Toro's thing to change everything to fit his adaptation, but there's a lot of unnecessary changes he makes that nerfs this movie like. I think the redesign for the creature is 100% a downgrade, especially giving him long hair, no iconic nails in his head, and he just looked too damn blue. Bro removed some of the best parts of the story, like I can't be the only one who wasn't a tad disappointed when Victor didn't say he's alive. Next, I think the biggest L this movie takes is it looks too much like a Netflix TV show. And even though there were a few times this movie had an identity crisis wanting to look like a Netflix movie and not at the same time, I was quickly reminded that my theory was correct. Everything looked weirdly clean, super digitized, or two-dimensional. So I think if you're going for that dark, gothic, dramatic storytelling, the Netflixified look cancels out the grittiness the story is going for. Now there's a lot more I could say about this damn movie, but to keep it shorter, it was still mad entertaining, and I respect how they took a really complex story and made it really straightforward and easy to absorb. So it's just a low 3.5 out of 5 movie, nothing too crazy, but I could still see it winning some awards or something. Next, I have a movie that's obviously not as good, but I found it more entertaining with Now You See Me, Now You Don't. And the question everyone's wondering is it better than the first? And it is crazy how close it is. Because for a 10-year legacy sequel, this was bound to suck, but instead it added to its universe with interesting, relatable Gen Z coded characters who mirrored each one of the Horsemen perfectly. It also quickly fixed all the doo-doo left over from the second movie with Isla Fisher instantly coming back, Lula having way less screen time, which made her actually bearable, role. And finally, this movie avoids each horseman having CGI superpowers, and out of the 3 to 4 big reveals this has, it actually shows how they pull things off in a logical way compared to the second, which was pushing into Harry Potter universe territory just a little bit. So overall, even though there were a few goofy moments which these movies are destined to have, especially with the scene where they were flexing tricks on each other was definitely pushing in that realm just a little bit. I could totally see people putting the third one over the first, with a standout weaker film being the second. So the third one is a 3.5 out of 5 for me. I had a blast with it, but still isn't as good as the first. Next we have Eternity, which follows an afterlife love triangle where they have 1 week to decide where and who they want to spend eternity with. And Elizabeth Olsen is faced with the impossible choice between the man she spent her whole life with or her first love who died young and has waited 67 years for her to arrive. And like, come on y'all, this movie has to be some type of 6-7 propaganda because they said 6 to 7 times in it, which made my brain want to explode. But besides all the 6-7 drops, most of the jokes were complete airballs. Like, Miles Teller's afterlife coordinator was a consistent cornball the entire movie with nothing she tried to do working for me. And pretty much every subtle joke Miles Teller whipped out was pretty good, almost evening it out. And besides Callum Turner's acting being a little iffy at points, the ending is the iffiest part of this. It really felt like the movie ended and then just kept on going just to hammer ideas we've seen time and time again. So some may say it made this movie feel like it went on for an eternity. So overall, even though this movie had a little bit of sloppiness with its ending, jokes, and acting, it kind of reminded me to be a better person before it's too late. And really just had a good enough premise to even out most of my negatives, which made it an easy watch, so it has to be a 3.5 out of 5. Up next, we got The Running Man, and going into this, I was not fully on the Glenn Powell train, where I thought he was a tad overrated, but he does have that aura that is essential to make this movie work. Now, the movie started off strong, and I love how they introduced all the rules and how this world works. And the movie really wanted to point out how the character Ben Richards is the most angry character of all time. But then somehow, slowly throughout the film, he just becomes less and less angry and spent the majority of the movie not as a running man, but more of a hide-and-seek man, which caused the movie to have one too many slowdown moments, especially in the middle, causing me as an audience member to really start feeling that runtime. So overall, even though Edgar Wright had a perfect combo of Glenn Powell, an action comedy, and a $110 million budget, it barely gave me that Hot Fuzz or Baby Driver nostalgia, which is really disappointing. But as a regular action movie, this was still mad entertaining, so it has to be at least a 3.5 out of 5, even though it had potential to be easily a 5 out of 5. Up next, we got Train Dreams, which might be the movie of the year for some people, and even though I didn't connect with it like I thought I would, it's one of those movies that needs to be an automatic locked-in 4 out of 5 just based on how beautiful it looks. There are multiple shots that get right up close to people's faces, and I can literally see every single detail, every single wrinkle, and every single gray hair. It genuinely looked like I could reach out and touch them on my TV screen. Next, I somehow watched this back-to-back with Paris, Texas, which is strange because this might also be a top 15 most depressing movie of all time. But it's one of those movies like Manchester by the Sea where I couldn't really make myself cry. And finally, there's clearly a ton of symbolism, like stuff about how fast time flies by, letting go, bystander guilt, and how witnessing tragedy but doing nothing about it can haunt you forever. And I think the most crucial part of the story is right when he was finally about to let go, his daughter came back and completely ruined that moment of emotional release for him, giving him false hope and trapping him in a life where he had nothing left to contribute to the world, becoming one of the loneliest people to ever do it. So if that shit isn't depressing, I don't know what is. So overall, even though this has to be a 4 out of 5, it's almost a pity 4 out of 5 because I don't know if I was just in a weird state, but I absolutely felt nothing during this film. And I had heard I was supposed to bawl my eyes out. I'm left with the same kind of emptiness I felt after The Iron Claw, where I have zero desire to revisit this depressing ass movie anytime soon. Next, we got another deep ass movie with Die My Love. And I feel like this movie is gonna be separated into two categories of people watching it. Like, we just got regular Joes who saw a movie starring Katniss Everdeen and Edward from Twilight and are gonna be completely caught off guard with how it's told and might just walk out of the theater. Or people going into it knowing it's gonna be one of those crazy, uncohesive, isolation main characters slowly going crazy due to postpartum depression movies. Very similar to Possession or Mother, where you question what's happening or what's real for the entire movie. Now, most people in the second category are probably gonna think it's an automatic masterpiece, but for me, I'm a tad conflicted. Because what I love about this film is the visuals, especially the night cinematography. It was just next level. And obviously the acting is just next level. Jennifer Lawrence is easily getting nominated. And finally, the movie really nails the slow annoyance of going crazy with background sounds or something a character is doing with no end in sight. Like, there were damn flies constantly lurking in the background, and just the presence of the outside was starting to get mad annoying. And after all those positives, what I'm most conflicted on is it almost felt like there was too many deep factors to the point where it gave me him vibes, because it really feels like the movie wants every single interaction to be some type of deeper meaning, like there was a black horse referenced multiple times, maybe being the freedom she doesn't have, the token black biker guy who doesn't speak referencing a fantasy or urge of sex she doesn't get, and obviously the ending of her walking into the woods on fire. Like, what does that mean? Is she letting go or giving up? I don't fucking know. I truly have too many examples of this, but to save us time, what I'm getting at is, obviously if you throw this many deep factors in a movie, people are going to be forced to believe it's a masterpiece because it becomes too uncohesive. So I just don't want to accept it's a genius movie just because they spam all of these references. So with my positives and negatives combined, I think this is still a great new addition to the slow burn, someone going crazy genre. So it's another film that I have to give a pity 4 out of 5 to. If you're still here, hit that follow button and comment down below your favorite new release in November. And easily the best new movie I watched in November was Zootopia 2. I think if you thought the first movie had a ton of jokes, references, and puns, the sequel said challenge accepted and multiplied the amount in the first by like 100. It got to a point where it's almost a mandatory rewatch with how many micro references are in this damn movie. My top 3 favorites being the Hungry Hungry Hippos reference mid-chase in the beavered biodome, the Silence of the Lambs reference with Bellwether in prison, and easily the best one in the movie was the Shining reference with the gigantic maze. And pretty much my only complaint for this movie is Nibbles Maple Stick. She became slightly an annoying character who got too much screen time. Now obviously I'm gonna have to address the actual elephant in the room. If you're watching this like you're Judy Hopps Lover 69, which makes you a very sick man if that's your intention, you will not be disappointed. Judy is like 15% more thicker, so just go in expecting pretty much every character to have gotten a buff in this offseason. There was even a diabolical don't pull a bunny's ears scene, like someone actually animated that frame by frame, like come on. So overall, this is a sequel that I'm not scared to say was better than the original and honestly just one of the best Disney animated movies I've watched in a very long time, so it has to be a 4.5 out of 5 for me. End of discussion.